My role and remit are very strongly driven by not only national law, so things like the Equality Act and the public sector equality duties that lie on every doctor's surgery, every hospital and every school and every council and every youth service and all of those people that I continue to kick. The public sector equality duty is underrated, underknown and underused in terms of pressure on statutory bodies that are supposed to abide by it, and schools are no exception. We are driven very particularly by two pieces of international law in terms of your interests. The first is the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability, on which the UK government is about to be challenged in the autumn. It will be hauled to Geneva as a ratifying state party of the convention, and it will be challenged by the international body on what it has done since the last time it was asked. We've just put out a call for evidence on the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability. Do get onto my website. You can Google Children's Commissioner, we come up. And if you've got things to say, what the UN doesn't do is personal stories. What the UN does is, up here, what's the nation doing to make transport and leisure facilities and shops and general society accessible to those with any degree of disability? Interestingly, the guy opposite me on the train this morning had what was clearly an eye condition, and I'm not an expert, so I'm not quite sure what it was. He was preparing to present at a conference on something or other, and the document was here. And he was moving the document, not his head. Now, I don't know what that condition is, but go on.
Nystagmus, possibly.
Nystagmus. He was busy tapping away on his iPad, and he was busy making all sorts of phone calls, and he was clearly a very important person. But I don't know whether that has been an easy journey for him, and I doubt it. And that's what the UN is looking for from the state party. How easy has the journey been made by those who have to make the adjustments, not the people whose difficulty they're dealing with? And that's the turn now, isn't it? Reasonable adjustments are not the job of the person with the condition concerned. They are the job of the organisations who are being worked with. The other big UN thing that we work with is the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, and that lies right at the heart of my business. If you read any of my reports, they will tell you which articles in that convention are relevant to that particular subject, and you'll understand we do work with asylum and poverty and access to school and exclusion and behaviour and bullying and you name it, and social work and care and so on. So not every article applies in every report, but the big article for you is Article 23. Article 23 of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child says that any child with any degree of disability or difficulty shall be supported by the state and its agents to aspire to and achieve all that might be aspired to and achieved within the limits of their potential as an individual. And that it is for society to ensure that happens. The United Nations Conventions are based on, here are the rights, it's your job to do it. And when they go to Geneva and get challenged, it will be on the basis of, you've read the rights and you've signed it and you ratified it through Parliament, so where are you at with delivering on it and where are the gaps? For me as Children's Commissioner, the other really, really big one is Article 12, which I tend to categorise as, it's not about you, it's about them. Article 12 says, in accordance with their age and stage of maturity, every child within a ratifying state party to the UNCRC shall have their voice both heard and taken seriously in every decision that is made about their lives. That includes the decisions you make, because you know best. Those of you who are parents of teenagers will know that you don't know best. You actually know what I'm talking about. The UN conventions are not laws. Let me just make that very clear. They bind in international comparisons. So at some point between now and 2016, we think the UN will call the UK as a state party to the Convention on the Rights of the Child to Geneva, and they will be challenged. The last time was in 2008. And they said then, you are not doing all you should to make the citizenship of your children with disabilities what it ought to be. They are not central to your thinking about their issues and their needs. You know, and it's not acceptable, so what are you going to do about it? And I have no doubt at all that when they go back in 16, They'll be challenged all over again. The UN Convention on the Rights of the Child is worth having a look at. UNICEF does a fantastic one-page summary of the articles because it talks about access to education, which is rounded and person-centred and specific to the aptitude and talents of the child, Articles 28 and 29. It talks about, in Article 21, the right of every child, no matter who they are, to play, rest, relaxation, the facilities to make those things happen, and the engagement in culture. So if you've ever tried to take your child to a live performance of Swan Lake and you've thrown a wobbly and you've had to take them out, or you've ever tried to take them to a fantastic sporting event and there aren't enough wheelchair spaces, so sorry you can't come in, or you've ever tried to take your child to something which involves everybody sitting in hushed and adoring silence as the ballet dancer pirouettes across the stage and they're shouting, then, you know, Article 31 guarantees their right to access to those things. They need to understand where they come from, what their culture is, how art and music enliven the soul and are part of you, but part of their history. And denying them that right is not acceptable. What we look at, very particularly, are things like where children's rights are being denied. So we've done a lot of work on schools. We've done a lot of work on school exclusion. We've done a lot of work on which groups are and which groups aren't excluded, and the DfE will tell you this because they publish their figures every year. And it goes like this. If you're a boy, you are 3 times more likely to be excluded from school than if you're a girl. Of the same basic ability and the same ethnic group and the same community, 3 times. If you are a black boy and you're sitting next to a white girl of the same social class and you are of the same ability, you are between 8 and 12 times more likely to be excluded from school. It's beginning to be recognised that that's not about the boy. That's probably about the school. If you are a black boy with special educational needs and you are sitting next to a girl who is of a different ethnic group from you and doesn't have special educational needs, the number rockets to about 63 times more likely. Get this one. If you are a black African or Caribbean boy and you are poor and you have a special educational need and you're sitting next to a white British girl of average intelligence in the same classroom with the same teacher, you are well over 70 times more likely to be excluded from school than your white counterpart sitting next to you. If you strip out the different layers, children with special educational needs are extremely likely to be excluded from school. They are likely to be excluded from school for short periods and repeatedly. They're likely to be excluded from activities in school. And they are the likeliest group to be illegally excluded. And this is where we really went to town. An illegal exclusion is where a school says, well, I know it'll go on your record, but we don't want that village, so why don't you just go home? Or, I know we've tried and you've tried, but we can't meet your needs. Do you think you might go somewhere else after half term? Or, well, Mrs. Higgins, I know that he wants to come on the school trip, but we can't deal with him, so you have it. That's illegal. All of those things are illegal exclusion. If it's not recorded and it's not written down and it's not been shared with the government and it's been done by anybody else in the school but the head teacher, it's illegal. If it's not recorded and you've been encouraged, it's illegal. So we really went to town, and I'm really pleased to say that Mr. Gove's response to our report was, schools, if they are found illegally excluding children, should be downgraded by Ofsted, and Ofsted have done it to at least 2 as a result of my report. So we do have clout. I can't make anybody do anything, but I can shame them. And we do. Because children who are out, quite apart from anything else, children who are out of school, unless you've actually rocked up in your car and put them into the passenger seat and driven them somewhere, may well be out of school and not safe. Look at the number of particularly young men, particularly with learning disabilities or difficulties, who have been prey to street gangs, being bullied, being hurt, being tortured, being set up for crime, you name it. And it happens to the girls in terms of exploitation of other sorts entirely, which we've better not talk about this morning because it upsets me. is hope. We also met schools when we did our illegal exclusions work and our inequalities exclusions work, who were absolutely determined to hold on to children who were, because of their own troubles and difficulties, causing troubles and difficulties in the school. So there are 3 reports on school exclusions, one from 2012 and 2 from last year. The 2012 one is called "They Never Give Up on You," because that was the words of a sixth former. She didn't have a learning disability, but she was sitting with her baby on her knee when she talked to us. And she said, if I'd been them and I'd been dealing with me when I was 14, I'd have given up. Because I was a complete nightmare and completely impossible. But you see, the thing about this place is they never give up on you. And I'm back and doing my A-levels, so there's a crash. Now, I think that was a really powerful title to give that report, because she was utterly determined, and so was the school, and so was its consortium of schools in the local area. If we can't deal with him, there will be a school somewhere within a 10-mile radius who can. We'll swap budgets from here to there and give them a new start. We saw a lot of that. When we looked last year, we published 2 reports. One's called "They Go the Extra Mile." I went into the Educating Essex school in Harlow. If you've not watched Educating Essex and Educating Yorkshire, get it. They're fantastic. The Educating Essex school was co-designed by the pupils, the staff, the parents, the community and the governors. And because it's virtually brand new, it was designed from the bottom up to be completely accessible. So it does have braille strips down the walls, and it does have induction loop, and it does have stripes on the floor so that if you've got particular partial signs, you can follow them. And I stood on the balcony with, it's a starfish design, so there's this huge central area that goes up through all the floors of the school. And staff offices, which have all got glass walls so the kids can see what's going on. And the staff room, which has no pigeonholes and no work tables, it just has a table football machine and a telly and a copy machine, and the kids can see where the staff are. If you're going to do work as a teacher, you're going your free periods to your faculty office, then you do it there. Staff room is for you. Staff room is for your personal and social time. We stood on the balcony, as head teacher and I, and it was movement time. So at the end of every lesson, the entire school crosses this huge central space. So if you miss your brother or your sister, you're bound to run across them because everybody's moving through them. And there was a year 8 kid, and he was on a roller frame. And clearly, the nature of his balance issues meant that, luckily for him, he was in a roller frame that went round the back of him, so he wasn't pushing it in front of him, and his mates could just walk alongside him, and the roller frame was just kind of there. And he fell out of it. Arms and legs everywhere, flailing. And his mates just got over him and picked him up and said, "You silly sod," put him back in, and they carried on. And they went, "You alright?" And he went, "Yeah." And I thought, God, I'm glad your mum's not here.